Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender Europe, game designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. We are going to be doing the East First series today. This is the next episode. Just finished a couple turns not too long ago. We are starting in, and I bet you I didn't bring up all my little buttons. Here we go again. Oh, I hate it when I do that. There we go. Put up all the buttons up here real quick for you. It helps sort of watch, how the numbers get set up and whatnot. We are starting off with the March 1942 turn. He has collapsed Russia. He did that at the August turn of 1941. The Western Allies came in September of 41 by a die roll. So all the U.S. entry and everything has been adjusted. The U.S. are officially in the war as of March 1942. So, unfortunately, their stuff doesn't come in for many turns, but they are in the war, so it helps me in strategic warfare a bit. And we will start with the weather die rolls here, I believe. And away we go. And there's the initial die roll for March. It is 552. If you look at the March line, that's severe, severe, and fair. So we adjusted all of that. Get these off the thing so you don't see the map. We didn't declare war. He's concentrating on getting rid of France. Now we're doing. We kind of did the economy phases together. You'll see that I moved the Belgians up to 2 and the French up to 17 here. That is the USA giving points to their allies. They can't give one to Britain because of the Lend-Lease rules. They're not allowed to give one to the UK or to the Russians or anything. But I can give it to France and I can give it to Belgium, so I did just to get in the habit of always making sure the US gives everybody an extra point whenever they can. So we skipped through that. Now we're at strategic warfare. He still doesn't have a plane in Norway up here. He has brought his Air Force out of Stavanger down to, if it's in Dusseldorf or it's in Bremen. He basically wanted to be able to overwhelm my Air Forces with his. So he's basically 4-2 against the French. And he rolled a 2, and I rolled a 4, plus 2 is a 6. So his factory loss marker went up by 1. So I'm starting to chip away at his production capability. That's actually kind of important because in the end of February, I was definitely worried about him rolling a 1 and starting his offensive in March. And I had, if you look at the end of the last video, right before I did my massive French withdrawal, I was up in this swamp, 28-17, 28-18, which is Aachen, and 29-19. And what I saw is if he got a fair weather turn, oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here. Damn dust. I figured he would, because the Belgians were in Brussels. I figured he had a breakthrough at 28-17, took Brussels, and then he basically had people who couldn't retreat anymore. And he could have killed like all 3 of my guards infantry besides conquering Belgium. And I was just like, no, we're going to make this a little bit harder. So I gave him back his city, essentially. Is what I strategically decided to do. Strategic movement, I believe he took... the 4th was there, and he just went ahead and moved it up there. Saved himself a production point. And then I believe we're going to go back over here to the west. Now, it is severe, so I took the The guy that was in Dijon, I figured I didn't have to worry about a breakthrough through the Maginot Line right now, and I moved him up into Calais. I'm trying to arrange my line to be something that can hold. All right. And the Soviets moved an airplane from Bryansk up to the front lines. That will be a recurring theme for the next few turns as my airplanes get down to 0 sorties. Then I just strategically move them so I don't have to worry about them having sorties and having to replace them. It's not like the Russians don't have points, but so now we're into the Axis operations phase. We'll go back over here to the west because that's where things will happen. He takes the 15th Army in Dusseldorf and goes and takes back his city. His factory count went up by 1, and he moves up his national will by 2. Is that right? Yeah. So he's at 74 now. That has to do with him conquering 7. Yes, he's conquered 7 miners, which is 14, and then 16 more for Russia. So he went up by 30, which should put him at 75, but I actually managed to kill a German army along the way. So that's why he's at 74. And then he was trying to think of where he was going to go with people, and he ended up bringing this armored unit down and tried a singular assault with just that armored unit on the Belgian. Since he's flipped, if he can get him to retreat. And I think this is me just built out some assault markers because that's what we're going to be doing this turn. I ended up at -2. He was at +2. And -1 for the swamp. Because we're in severe weather, he doesn't get his armor bonus. His airplanes can't help him. And out of form, I went ahead and played the ground support, even though I'm at -2. I have no other miners to use them on, so I went ahead and used it. So I went down to -1. And then he rolled a 4 + 1, which was a 5. Have that to 2.5 becomes a 3. I managed to roll a 5. -1 is a 4. Have that becomes a 2. So a 3 to a 2 is a diamond result. So Belgium's actually held. And then, of course, my ground support comes in 6 turns. It's not that I really need it, but just typical of my... Every time I use a counter, it seems to always come in 5 or 6 turns. I don't know why. So then he dropped himself another 6 points here and just said, I'm taking that hex. I don't care what you say. So he started off with 2 for the armor that's not going across the river, 1 for each buddy, put him up to 4, -1 for the swamp, and I was at -2. I had no more counters to play, and he got a grand total of 8, so I'm definitely, going away. And so I get removed. Now, I kind of engineered this because I wanted to show this on video. What happens here is Belgium just lost a standing army, so their will goes to 0. So they are collapsed. Then you check, and the Germans do not control a home city. Right? So they are collapsed, and you follow the collapse rules. And what happens there is that the Belgians start at half their normal willpower, and if they had any, units, you would flip units and things like that. But so what ends up happening is Belgians are still technically in the war. He does not get a pro marker now. He does not get a +2 willpower, and the 1 wills don't go on his conquered countries box. So that's just sort of the mechanics of collapse without actual conquest, it's very rare that I actually see that happen. Usually they control a home city somewhere along the way, and so it just turns into a conquest. But that's basically the mechanics. If you just collapse, basically you start over with your willpower at half of what it originally was. So, and after that, he was kind of done with the Germans. He just started moving some Yugoslavs over here. I'm really confused where we just went. Oh, and then I think he did. Yes, he moved this fighter from Bremen up to the Netherlands. And then we went into Western operations. And I decided that because of the way the Diplomacy Cup is set up, there's nothing but no events and a political failure in it. So I'm not going to pull. I'm going to have somebody put those 2 no events back in. And we're just going to make it really hard for the Germans to get anywhere diplomatically here through 42. So I decided to pick up the Western Desert Force here in Alexandria along with the Med Fleet and the convoy there. And off we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to zoom out so it's a little bit easier for us to follow this fleet. So I'm 4 into that sea zone. 19. 5. 6, 7 for the straight. 8 for the sea zone. 9. Where'd it go? There it is. And then 10. Went into the Bay of Biscay. And everybody landed at Nantes. Everybody took a sortie. The fleet and the convoy took a sortie. And then I believe I go and I get the American fleet and convoy that came in North America. It was 3 to the North Atlantic, 4 to 1 to Sea Zone 1, 5 to 9, 6 to 7, and then landed in Brest. So they're going to help me with my supply issue with the British. And did I do anything here? Oh, yes, and then I thought about it, and I said, he's got a whole bunch of airplanes there that I probably should do something about. So he's at 0 and halved, and I'm at -2 and halved. So I got a grand total of 2. He got a 1, so we each took 1. He still could roll a 6 and cause me to get 2 sorties, but I was just trying to take care of his airplanes as best I could. I got a 1 again, and he got a 1 again. So, and then once we reached that 4 plateau, because now he's -2 net, but he's halved. So Besting gets a 4 halved to a 2, and this is a point where you can just go, run them up, kids. And we did that. The French Air Force is never going to survive German counter-air, so I'd rather have him start with only 4 sorties and have to use at least 1 to get rid of my French air. It just cuts down the total number of sorties that he has available. And then here I did some nonsense. Oh yes, I moved the British Air Force in to Antwerp and then started going after some of his airplanes. So I was a 0 and he was a 0. I rolled a 2, he rolled a 1 again. So now I think we're both at -1. I got a 5. Halved 2.5 rounds up to a 3. And he got a 5. So I was like, oh, look, I can get a 2 for 1. And he didn't. He said no. So we went up to there. Then I switched over to this one where we're both and basically I got a 2 and he halved, and he got a 1 that's halved. So we each took 1 there, and then I had 2 sorties left, so I took each of his airplanes up by 1. I said that's about the best I can do, but And he thought I did more. I said, no, 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 no. And then the fighter command moved up to there. It was in Algiers. Let's back it up. So I'd use the thing to show me where 10 goes, and it could get to Algiers. Or not to Algiers, but to there in France. And did I take it all the way up? Then I went ahead and put it in England so I wouldn't have to supply it with convoy. Then I put the second RAF up there. And what I did there is I said, okay, I'll have two sorties on each of these in England, and I'll have 2 sorties here in Antwerp. So if he goes after the British, I will basically have 6 sorties to try and defend the Brits, which, you know, that's about as good as it gets. I'm going to be facing 4 armored units every turn. There's not a lot I can do. The only good thing is the German or the French infantry in the line here. These are all the equivalent of German infantry, so it's a little bit harder for him to push me out, but very easy to do. And now I think, what did we do here? Oh, yes, and then I did something with the French. What did I do here? Oh, I got him out of Lille. And I moved this infantry down in Gapes. Used to be, it used to be here. And I said, let's get it on a port. I have a feeling I'm going to have to pull it back to France to try and defend France for a while. And I don't see Italy coming in the war until France is conquered. You just won't have the political successes available. So now I think I thought about moving the British there, and I looked at it and I said, you know, I don't think I really want it that way. I want the Brits up there. So I undid them, and I went ahead and moved the French into Lille. The idea here was just to try and not give too much ground. I might have to give up Antwerp to a good assault, but oh, I think I'm doing supply here somewhere. Oh yeah, the Americans went up. I had an airplane, a BEF, and the Western Desert Force all in France. So I ran the Americans up 3. Then we go over to the operations phase in the Soviets, and I'm not sure I actually did anything. Maybe I did some shenanigans. Yes, I did some shenanigans. So I was moving some shock armies and some infantry around, making room for, there's going to be armor coming in, so I wanted to be able to build one in Kursk in a couple of turns. That's all that is. That's just, like I said, it's me doing just little shenanigans. We get through that, we go to supply phase, or replacements phase. He had, go back a bit. He had 15, so he spent all of it, I believe. Spends 12 right now, and I think he's just going to do his airplanes here in the west. And then he spent the other 3 and took care of his convoy up here with the Nor unit. As long as I'm sitting in Antwerp, I can actually intercept him trying to supply that unit or moving it. Moving it probably won't matter because, you know, it'll just move into Copenhagen. It's not a big deal on C-Zone 12. But the supply thing could be, especially if I decide to, do some kind of invasion of the Norway or something later. So He was just trying to get himself reset while he has the extra points. Now I think we're doing the west. I don't think I moved the little counter move. So, see, I had 14 and I moved it down to, I had to move it down 13. Don't know why I moved it down 13. So the French go 3, 6, and fix their convoy in the med here, I think. What are we doing? And then I did the British, one of their convoys and all of their airplanes for 12. And the British and the Americans, of course, they just reset because they have unlimited production points. And I think we are done there. The Soviets go over and they're going to do their airplanes here. Boom, 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 boom. So they get 2 airplanes down to 0 and 1 at 2. And oh yeah, I also flipped over my 2 face-down infantry. And then we went to then I finally got caught up on the sequence play there. Mobilization, I don't think anybody had anything they could build. We went into diplomacy. And the Axis didn't have any points, so we had to skip them. We went to the west. The U.S. now pays for stuff in the Diplomacy Cup, and so they went, let's just put 2 no events in there. So now there's 6 no events and a political failure. So even when the Germans conquer Belgium, they'll get 1 pro marker, but there won't be any political successes to give them like the chance to activate a minor. At best, they'll get to be able to influence one. And I'm planning on not pulling unless he puts in a political success. Then I might try to pull to get it away from him at this point. And we just, double checked and said, yeah, there's no pro markers for either one of us, just no events and a political failure. So, and then we went to end of turn phase here, which is nothing really huge. He got his airdrop marker, I got my bomber. And we're in April. So we go to the weather phase again, and I'm waiting for my nightmare to happen here, where he rolls a 1 for the fair weather in the mild zone. And he didn't. He rolled a 5, 3, 3. So it was severe before, so we go to the bottom line over here on the April line. A 5 stayed severe in the cold, and then he got poor and poor. So weather is improving for him. We didn't declare war. We go to the economy phase, where we just kind of all do our thing. Again, I added 1 to the Belgians and 1 to the French, just to be in practice. We go to strategic warfare. Again, he is a 0, and I am +2. And he rolled a 4, so he's like, hey, that's pretty good. I managed to roll just enough. I rolled the same number, but with +2, it gives me a 6. And a 4 to a 6 is an AS2. It's just enough to chip another factory off of him. So now he's down to 11 factories when he counts, so he'll only be at 22 next turn. Strategic movement. Oh, I pointed out to him, this is something I just felt it my responsibility to point this out to him, is that the BEF, because it's sitting with a convoy and Force H, that I could invade because I still have my surprise attack marker. And I just had to point it out to him. I said, I can invade into C-Zone 12. Like, I could take Copenhagen, and then I'd get an extra +2 because I'd be on C-Zone 13 with a naval unit. So I'd be +4 on your strategic warfare. So I just pointed it out to him because he was kind of vacillating whether he needed to do a strategic move or not. And he had a garrison unit kind of just sitting there on the border with the Netherlands doing nothing. And I kind of said, you need to, think about this. I'm not sure that I would do it, but it is something I could do. And being on that C-Zone could be really bad for his strategic warfare. He's already, given up his +1 to try and overwhelm me with his air forces. So it made sense for him to just go ahead and throw a garrison in there for now. As soon as he takes Antwerp, that threat goes away. But will he take Antwerp this turn? That's another question. Do you want to take the chance? So strategic movement. What I did is I went off and I got the Western Desert Force out of Nantes, and I just moved it into Paris. Soviets, I believe, move another airplane. This thing needs to get out of the way. And I pick up another airplane that has 0 sorties and move it to the front. And yeah, then we're into Axis operations. So he activates this armored and goes after Brussels. Before he actually resolves the attack, he goes and does the French Air Force. Again, the reason why you don't see us rolling dice there, if you do the math, the Germans are +2 for German, -2 for weather, then -4 for sorties. So the best they can get is a 2. The French are -4 for sorties and -2 for the weather, so the best they can get is a 1. 2 to 1 is always a diamond. So when you're at 4 sorties like that, it's like there's no chance to get an extra sortie on the French. So it's just automatic exchange. So we just rip through it. There are certain things that are, fixed in this game when you're at that level of sorties and stuff and it's lousy weather. There's no lucky die rolls involved. It's just going to be an exchange. So we've come to realize that, and we do things a little bit faster because of that. And then he goes and does his assault here. Oh, I think we're in combat commitment. And we both committed. It was kind of, hey, no-brainer. So he's throwing in an airplane. I think he threw the one in Dusseldorf. So then we go through and we add it up. He's +2 for a German, +1 because he's an armored. He's adding an armored buddy, and then an airplane. And then it's -1 for the city, -1 for the weather. And I started off at +1 because I'm French, plus another one because I'm elite, and another one because I'm a tank. So, because I have a tank's marker plate. So it's +4 to +3. Where's the... There we go. And he rolled a 4 + 4, which was an 8. And I rolled a 2 + 3, which was a 5. That was a DR. So I had to flip because I cannot legally retreat. I have myself surrounded. And that was the end of that. And I think that he went over here in the east. He's going to move this German infantry. Moves the German infantry up here. He's trying to form a line along the demarcation line. 3, 4, 5. So he's slowly but surely moving German infantry and miners and stuff up into the line, trying to form a line against the Russian army, which won't come in till the end of 42. But, when he's got the odd point, you got to spend it now so that you can... and you'll notice that he has 18 left. That's extremely purposeful, the reason why he has 18 points left. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Oh, what I did is I pointed out to him that the plane that he had in, oh, let's zoom in so I can read the text. He used to have the plane here. And I pointed out to him, I said, did you really mean to leave that plane there? Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 movement points from the 2nd RAF. So I wouldn't have to like move to the continent to attack it. I could just nail it from London. And he was like, nah, you're right. I should have moved that. So I let him go ahead and move that. And then because it's poor weather, I went, hey, run those guys up each one. And I thought really hard about this, and then I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. Fighter Command goes there. 2nd RAF goes there. I am within 3 of the English coast in London, so Fighter Command is fulfilling my home defense. And then I just said, the heck with it, we're running the Germans up. This means the Germans will never have more than 8 sorties in any given turn. And until he chases the British Air Force off the continent, I should be able to keep him. You know, he'll use a couple, maybe 2 sorties to take out the French. And then after he gets done using his 6, if he has any extra sorties left, unless he flies way far away, the British Air Force should be within range to make sure that he stays at no more than, 2 on each one of those airplanes. This is the advantage of him coming so late to me. I have a huge amount of Air Force, and because I managed to keep him from getting Italy for so long, there's no threat to the British Empire. So I can have both British armies, all the Air Force. It's all here in France for the 1942 showdown. So it's going to be interesting to see how we end up with this. And I think that might be all I did. Oh, no. Then what I did here is I moved the French. The 7th Infantry moves behind the Marne. The 1st Tank Army moves back a space in front of Paris. May is like a 50-50 chance for fair. June is 2/3. And I wanted to be able to have my guys have retreat routes as much as possible, if possible, so that he couldn't just like force them to die in place and then get to the second line, with panzers. And I have 4 panzers to deal with, so I'm trying to contain their breakout, not necessarily stop it. And that's basically all I did. I have a retreat route for the British. I have retreat routes for the Guards units, although if he does things in a certain order, he might end up breaking through and isolating one of these guys. But the idea was to just give myself a way to retreat, depending on how he attacks. Try to save some of those units rather than having to, hold the line with next to nothing. And next turn, I will be bringing the 1st North African Army out of Gabes will be coming into Marseille. And then I may even go back and pick up the garrison unit that's in Oran and bring it up to like Bordeaux or something, just so I have something to throw in front of him if I need to slow him down while I rebuild the army. Not sure how badly this is going to go for me. And I went to the Soviets and I said, I have absolutely nothing to do with the Soviets. So we went to no supply phase, so we don't have that. We get to Axis replacements, and he will spend all 18 and go 3, 6, 9, 12. Oh, did I not go over there? Six, 9, 12. Oh, I know what this was. We had kind of blown through my supply phase, and I was like, I have to supply all these guys because I have like 5 guys in there. So I ran the Americans up by 3. This convoy went up, and that convoy went up. And then he finished. He did his 2 airplanes in the east, so all of his airplanes in the east are at 0 sorties, and all these guys are as low as they can be. They're at 4. He's kind of given up on the Diplomacy Cup until he has some successes here. I think his plan, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe his plan is, he's going to conquer Belgium. He's going to get a pro marker in the Cup. And his idea is if he can conquer France here in 42, he'll get an automatic political success, which he can drop in Italy. And then he'll have 2 things in the Cup, which gives him like a 2 in 10, 20% chance to pulling it right away and activating Italy, and then causing me all sorts of havoc in 42 and 43 in the Middle East, just to keep me from doing things while he has to go deal with Russia, rather than me being able to just stay here and fight him on the continent. If he can't conquer France in summer of 42 here, and the Americans start to show up, and the other British Canadian army shows up, it's going to be a long World War I kind of war here in the East, or in the West, as long as he keeps his armor over here. But if he feels he has to pull his armor away, I think because my French armies are the same as his German infantry, these 3 guards units, that I can slowly but surely grind him back into Germany while the Russians are trying to, tie them all up in the East. So it's really coming down to, can France hold? And I believe I did. I flipped over them, and I brought back those, and I completely fixed my convoy. UK is going to do something similar. I started to do this, and then I looked at my points, and I said, oh, wait, I can't do that. So when we got to mobilization, I realized I couldn't do this. I said, wait, I can't take the 2 here. I needed those 3 to go with my other point so that I had 4 production points left so I could build Bomber Command. And I stuck it over here in Hull. I put it in London. I was trying to figure out where the best place was to put it. And then we get to diplomacy phase. He couldn't do anything. And I looked at the Diplomacy Cup and I said, I don't want to give him any success chances. So we just skipped right on through it and said, that's it. We're done. To end of turn phase, where we pick up some stuff. I get my tanks. This is the most important turn for the British, because they no longer will be stuck at the -16, because they will get a Lend-Lease factory. What's going on here? I got my ground support in there. I got my Commonwealth trade marker for 3. I got a Lend-Lease factory for 1. And that's going to come back in November. I'll get another Lend-Lease. And we begin May. So now the British are at 9 minus 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. They'll have 24 points. Germany is at 14 minus 3, so they'll have 11. So they'll be at 14 minus 3. Yeah, they'll be at 11. They'll be at 22. The British will be at 24. So the British will actually have 2 more production points than the Germans. And if necessary, if he takes Lille or whatever, the British will have enough production that they, as well as the U.S., can give France a point each, which will make up for a lost factory for the French. So, yes, this game is also about economies. And right now I'm doing well. I'm getting ahead of him on the... He has a couple of subs coming, I think, in June. So this lead that I have in the strategic warfare here is going to be not there for a couple turns. He's going to get some factories back, I think, because I don't get an ultra until after his subs show up. So, but I do have Bomber Command now, so now he has to think about, oh Lord, he can just go off and get an extra couple pluses whenever he wants, unless he has a fighter designated to defend me. And because I have, the British Air Force can actually reach his fighter Air Force, he's got a bit of an issue on how he stops the bomber too. Then we went to the weather phase. We talked about, do you want to do another turn? Do you not want to do another turn? And we kind of said, let's do the weather. If it comes up poor weather, then, May is going to be like one attack here, move a couple units, and I'm done for kind of both of us. And so we said, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So we rolled the weather. Oh, I just reset my units. And he rolled a 5-1-4, which is exactly what he needed. In May, a 5 in the cold zone makes it poor. But the more important thing is that in the mild, with a 1, and then a 4 in the warm zone, he got fair weather. So, case yellow, 1942 style, is coming at me. The only advantage I have is that we're going to assume that he has really good die rolls and that he only loses 2 sorties in the south. So he's going to have 6 sorties to go after the French. And going after the British is, going to be problematic. And if he doesn't save any sorties for his fighter, then I'm going to go ahead and send Bomber Command in just to get a couple more points on the strategic warfare to try and get ahead of him before his submarines get in. Will I hold here? I really don't know. And that's the end of our log file. So it's, like I said, these French infantry units in Lille, Brussels, and Sedan, they're all the equivalent of German infantry. So he's having to beat his own infantry. Will he use his surprise attack marker and his paratrooper to break this line and come running in really fast? I don't know. Maybe he will. Will he use it to get rid of the BEF permanently? I don't know. Maybe he will. The question to my mind is, do you want to use it in May and not see it again for the rest of the war in France, or do you want to wait until you're like trying to break the Marne-Seine line here? When you're trying to break that river line, say in August or something, and you've finally broken the Somme and gotten your supply line, because that's his biggest thing. He has to get either hex 3817 here, or he has to get Calais and 2914 along with Paris or whatever, in order to have himself a secure supply line back into Germany. If he doesn't get one of those corners, he's going to be limited to basically being along the Seine in the Seine, I guess it is. I can't ever pronounce that right. But he's going to be kind of stuck on that line because if he goes beyond it, he'll fall out of supply range in most cases. And he can't really afford to have armored units suddenly be out of supply, go down by -2. Now they're only good as infantry, and I will swarm it to try and get rid of it because of its offensive potential when it's in full supply. So he's got to be careful about how he goes through France and keep himself in supply. And hopefully I can delay him long enough that by the time he gets around to doing a breakout, I have 30 willpower to play with. And even if he takes Calais, Paris, Sedan, and Lille, that's only 10 willpower. And maybe he kills 3 or 4 infantry along the way, as long as he doesn't kill them all in one turn. I think I have a pretty good chance of slowing him down along the Somme-Marne line in Paris for a couple turns, and then, maybe in July, August. I'm assuming he's going to get fair in June. He's going to have 5 fair weather turns. I'm assuming that he's going to be on that line in July, that he's going to have taken all of those spaces. And then he will be able to move forward come August and probably use a surprise attack marker to break that river line. But hopefully by then I have all my infantry back, and I can go into the Mediterranean bastion down here in Vichy, or maybe the Brittany ports, Entes and Brest, because those help me against strategic warfare. I might split the army up. I might send the British one way and the French the other. And if he's concentrating on taking the French, then maybe the British can make a flanking attack. Especially if I keep the surprise attack marker handy, I might be able to invade behind his lines and cut his supply line. Land at Antwerp, move one hex into Brussels, and I don't think he's going to take the time to kill the Maginot forts. It's probably not worth his time and energy. I'm not planning on abandoning them. Those are 4 units that I just assume I do not have to defend France with. I will be bringing up this guy probably. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The third will probably come up. The first North African will come into Marseille and then move up into the line as well. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. So stay tuned, folks. I'm Gen608. If you like my videos, please subscribe. Hit that like button so it stays up on the YouTube algorithms so that everybody can see this. And until next time, stay safe and bye-bye.